Welcome to Neural Nectar, your brain on optimization. Today, we are killing a sacred cow, self-discipline.
That is certainly a provocative starting point. For decades, discipline has been framed as the single most important thing for success.
Absolutely. The whole message is
Yeah.
you just need more grit, more hustle, right? More willpower.
But the sources we pulled together, they really suggest that relying on that is just, well, it's an inefficient, biologically doomed strategy.
It's not about having this infinite well of inner strength. It's about having superior system design.
Right. We're challenging that core belief in limitless willpower. And we're going to ground this deep dive in the clinical evidence, specifically around a concept known as ego depletion.
Okay, before we go any further, let's unpack that. Ego depletion. It sounds dramatic. What's the core mechanism here?
Well, the core idea, pioneered by researchers like Roy Baumeister, is radical in just how simple it is. Your willpower isn't infinite.
It's a resource.
It's a limited vital resource. Think of it like your physical strength or the battery in your phone. Every single act of self-control, every conscious choice, it drains that battery just a little bit.
So if I force myself to get up early, then resist that urge to check my phone, and then make myself do hard work, I'm dipping into the same limited reservoir for all of those things.
Exactly. And the consequence is that one act of volition, that is the conscious effort to regulate your behavior, it temporarily reduces your ability to engage in the next act of volition.
Even if the acts are completely different.
Completely unrelated. That's the key.
Okay, so let's clarify the mission for today. We're going to look at the clinical evidence that shows just how limited this capacity is.
And then we're going to present the engineering solution. Choice architecture, moving the focus from, blaming yourself to engineering your environment.
The limited resource model. It suggests that things like choice and self-control, they all draw from this one shared pool.
And if you look at the research, what's really fascinating is how quickly this resource gets depleted by things that seem totally trivial.
You're talking about the foundational study. We have to talk about the setup here because this is where you see just how fragile this resource really is. This is the famous Radish versus chocolate experiment.
Exactly. Baumeister and his team, back in 1998, they recruited participants who were specifically hungry, which, heightens the temptation.
Right.
And they put them in a room. And the room was deliberately scented with freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. There were chocolates everywhere, and also a bowl of radishes.
A great way to test someone's resolve.
So they split these hungry participants into 3 groups. The first group, the critical one, was forced to eat only the radishes.
So they had to actively resist this powerful, tempting impulse to eat the sweets right next to them.
While the second group got to eat the chocolate, and the third was a no-food control.
So that radish group, they were exerting extreme impulse control for, 5 minutes?
That's right. That was their depletion phase.
Oh.
And right after that, all of the groups were taken to another room for a totally separate task.
The unsolvable puzzles.
Trying to solve these frustrating geometric puzzles that were, in fact, unsolvable. And the researchers were just timing how long they would persist before giving up.
And the finding was, it was just shocking. The people who were forced to resist the chocolate, the radish eaters, they quit so much faster.
They persisted for significantly less time than both the group that ate chocolate and the control group. The numbers really tell the story here.
Yeah.
I mean, the research suggested that a mere 5 minutes of resisting chocolate caused a reduction by half in how long people would keep trying at the puzzles.
A reduction by half in mental endurance from eating a radish instead of a cookie.
It just underscores how thin that margin is when you're relying on raw discipline.
And it goes beyond just resisting snacks, right?
Yeah.
The research showed that all sorts of different acts draw from this same pool.
Absolutely. The classic assumption is that self-control is just for resisting temptation. But the researchers tested other things.
Let's talk about the second experiment because that one is really counterintuitive. They found that even making a choice you agree with, it still drains you. Why is that?
This is where we learned that the cost isn't in the final behavior. It's in the internal process of just monitoring and regulating the choice itself.
So just the process of choosing.
The act of making a deliberate choice, of firing up that executive function, depleted the resource, even if it was a choice they agreed with.
So if I spend 20 minutes trying to pick the best healthy oatmeal, even though I want to eat healthy, that act of choosing costs me energy that I won't have later for a tough work project.
Precisely. The moment your brain has to run the calculation, this or that, you spent the resource. And it's the same for regulating your emotions, too.
Right. Experiment 3. Participants who had to stifle their emotions while watching a video, they did worse on solvable anagrams right after.
You can't suppress a laugh or, hold back sadness in one situation without it affecting your cognitive performance in the next.
So the key takeaway for you, the listener, is that every conscious effort you make, resisting a snack, choosing responsibly, stifling an emotion, it's all coming out of the same small, shared battery.
And that battery runs down incredibly fast.
The lab results are fascinating, but what happens when you raise the stakes? I mean, from resisting a cookie to deciding a person's future, does it hold up under real professional pressure?
This brings us to the really stunning real-world evidence of decision fatigue.
The hungry judge effect.
A remarkable study from 2011 on sequential parole decisions. We're talking about highly experienced Israeli judges. Average tenure was over 22 years, making life-altering rulings.
You would just assume that judges like that, they're relying purely on legal facts, right? On evidence. How could something as simple as being mentally tired override decades of training?
Well, this is the critical part. You have to recognize that the default outcome for a prisoner is rejection. Granting parole required more cognitive effort.
They had to actively override that default.
And build a robust argument for it.
Yeah.
The data proved it. Favorable rulings took significantly longer to decide. We're talking about 7.3 minutes on average versus only 5.2 for rejections.
So the path of least resistance was to just say no.
Exactly. And the data show this dramatic pattern. Within each session, morning, late morning, afternoon, the proportion of favorable rulings dropped. It went from a high of about 65% all the way down to nearly zero.
Wow. So rejection approached 100% as the judges got further into their caseload.
Your outcome as a prisoner basically depended on whether your case was heard right after a break or right before one.
It sounds like the judge's stomach was the controlling variable, not the legal facts.
And crucially, this pattern was reset by a simple biological event. The likelihood of a favorable ruling jumped right back up to 65% immediately after the judge took a food break.
A late morning snack or lunch.
And that simple break restored the mental resources they needed to make that more effortful non-default decision.
Hold on, are we really suggesting we can blame a judge's rejection rate on just being hungry and tired? Doesn't that sort of undermine the entire judicial process?
Well, we're not blaming corruption or poor judgment. We're just reporting the evidence. And the evidence suggests that rejection becomes the easier decision when their executive function is depleted.
They're biologically pushed toward the path of least resistance.
And if highly experienced experts making decisions about someone's life succumb to this, imagine how much easier it is for you and me to just give in and choose the refrigerator over the gym.
That makes the stakes extremely high for everyday life. If we accept that willpower is this fragile, then trying to just get more of it is a fool's errand. The solution has to be somewhere else.
And that is the liberating part. The problem isn't a moral failing on your part. It's a design failure in your environment.
So since willpower is limited, we stop relying on it. Instead, we redesign the context to favor the good choices.
This is choice architecture. What behavioral economists Thaler and Sunstein called the nudge.
We need to think like a choice architect for our own lives.
Right. They draw this helpful line between two types of people. The world is often designed for econs, these theoretical people who have limitless willpower and always reason brilliantly.
But we're not econs. We, the listeners, we're humans. We make mistakes, we have self-control breakdowns, we get tired. Good design has to accommodate the human.
So let's look at a few key principles of good choice architecture, the ones that really help eliminate the need for discipline.
The first one, and probably the most powerful defense against depletion, is defaults.
Defaults. They just exploit the fact that we all generally choose the option that requires the least effort, the path of least resistance.
It's everywhere. When you install software, regular installation is the default because they know most people won't click custom.
Or automatic renewals for subscriptions. They exploit our inertia. The default is where we land if we do nothing.
So how do you apply this to your own life?
If you want to save money, don't rely on willpower to transfer it at the end of the month. Set the default to automatic withdrawal before the money even hits your main account.
And for exercise, the night before, set the default to gym mode by sleeping in your workout clothes.
Yes. You immediately eliminate that first decision of the morning, should I get changed? The choice is already made.
The next principle is expect error, or what you might call forcing functions. A good system anticipates our mistakes.
It makes them either physically impossible or at least easy to fix.
The classic example is the ATM. It gives you your card back before it gives you the cash.
A perfect forcing function. It prevents that predictable mistake of walking away and leaving your card behind.
Or the design of a diesel fuel nozzle.
Exactly. It's intentionally too big to fit in a regular gas tank. It makes an expensive mistake physically impossible.
So if you struggle to start your hardest work project, you can expect the error of distraction.
The forcing function there is an app that blocks distracting websites. You set it the night before. You remove the need for morning discipline entirely.
Okay, another powerful element here has to be structuring complex choices. When we face too many alternatives, our brains just shut down.
We simplify. We use shortcuts. Good design helps us navigate that. The paint wheel is a great example. Organizing thousands of colors by how they're related, not just alphabetically, makes a massive decision manageable.
And for personal choices.
It's about reducing that complexity. If you want to eat healthier, you make the healthy choice salient. You make it obvious and easy. The research shows people eat what's closest to them.
So the fruit bowl goes on the counter.
And the unhealthy snacks go on the highest shelf in an opaque container, maybe even hidden behind something else. You're redesigning your world so that when your ego depletion battery runs down, and it will run down, probably around 3 p.m.
The passive, easiest choice you default to is still the good one.
Yes. When you're depleted, your brain defaults to simplicity and proximity. We're just using that known biological limitation to our advantage.
This is a huge shift. We can stop beating ourselves up over failures of discipline. It was never a moral failure.
It was a failure of executive function due to resource exhaustion. Plain and simple.
We've gone on a deep dive today to confirm that self-control is, well, it's a scarce and precious resource.
And it's entirely rational for your brain to want to conserve it. By understanding the data on ego depletion and decision fatigue, you realize you're not lazy. Your executive function is just finite.
And understanding that limitation is the first crucial step toward managing yourself effectively. The sources are clear. Chronic ego depletion can lead to pathological passivity, to burnout.
To avoiding control entirely. You quit because the system demands more energy than you have left in the tank.
So instead of aiming for extraordinary resilience,
Aim for extraordinary environment design. Focus on making the right choice, the passive, easy default choice.
which means the focus has to change completely, not from strengthening your will, but to weakening the resistance. Don't increase your willpower, decrease the friction.